And Sam, last week, Carlton Footy Club announced that Michael Voss would be coach in 2026. Tonight, you're going to tell us, though, that they did consider other options.
Yeah, I think there's a really important timeline, Damo, to go through here. And I'm going to say that this is a story off the top that the Carlton Football Club vehemently deny. We'll get to what they've said on the record in a couple of minutes. But it was 7 weeks ago that Rob Priestley, the new president, came in and said, you know, that we're not absolutely guaranteeing Michael Voss's future beyond 2025. We're going to have Graham Wright, the incoming CEO, take a really good look at the footy club. We know that last Wednesday there was that 5-hour board meeting, and by Thursday mid-morning there was a statement from Priestley and the Carlton Football Club saying that they were standing by Michael Voss, who would coach into 2026. What the club didn't tell you is that in that period, my understanding, and I can report to you tonight, that there were multiple people that were approached to coach Carlton in 2026. One of them is a current rival coach of one of the other 17 clubs, was approached about the potential of coaching Carlton in 2026. When those conversations didn't go any further, it was then that Graham Wright, the incoming CEO, chose to give his recommendation to the Carlton board last Wednesday afternoon, going into early evening, that Michael Voss should be retained into 2026. Now, as I said, Carlton deny this. They've called the story misleading, untrue and factually incorrect. I want to say that again. We put the story tonight on Footy Classified to Carlton, and they said they want to make it absolutely clear that this report is untrue, misleading and factually incorrect.
So off the back of that statement, Sam, from Carlton's response to it, you seem very confident that your story, stacks up.
Yeah, I think that there are times in footy and in media where clubs are going to say one thing, and I'm really comfortable and confident sitting here saying the other. And, it's going to start the debate whether Carlton were going behind Michael Voss's back, who was going into another contract lotto. There would be other people, and I'm not saying this is my opinion, but there would be other people saying, well, of course, Carlton would do their due diligence. Michael Voss is under pressure. The club hasn't really performed in the last 4 years under him. Of course, they're going to look around to see if there are other options. I'm sure there are people asking the question right now, did Melbourne have conversations with other potential coaches before sacking Simon Goodwin?
So, Sam, are you saying, obviously, that the others coaches or prospective coaches that they reached out to rejected the job?
That's my understanding, yes.
Because of the contract in place for Michael Voss, or other reasons?
I don't think it's...
And why can't you name the coach that you know to have been approached?
Yeah, that's a fair question. Look, I've chosen not to name the coach tonight because I don't believe the story is about that coach and the club to which he's coaching and is currently contracted. The story, I think, is around Michael Voss and Carlton. It was 4 years ago. They gave the job verbally to Ross Lyon. That wasn't ratified at board level. Michael Voss, and this is no blight on him or his character, was not the first choice for that coaching position. And he has had, it's been well on the record, they have had a roller coaster run under Michael Voss. Have gone from making prelims to not making finals. That statement, and we can take a look at the statement that was released last week. There are interesting parts of it here if you look into the wordings of it. So it starts by saying we want to clarify that he will coach into the 2026 season. Don't dismiss the into the 2026 season. This isn't a glowing endorsement. They talked about down the bottom that they were utilising the remaining games to make a rational and fully informed decision to take the club forward. And then the statement continues. And it says that Graham Wright, as we told you a couple of moments ago, gave that recommendation to the board that he will remain the senior coach. We want to make it absolutely clear that Michael Voss is the coach of the Carlton Football Club and he will remain coach of the Carlton Football Club. Now, they're going into next year knowing that the club is under pressure, knowing that the team is under pressure, knowing that the coach is under pressure. Yeah. So I think it's absolutely within the rights of Graham Wright and others to look around to see what other options there are before making that decision.
And just on that, he wouldn't be the first and he wouldn't be the last. That you do say, let's see how he performs. I'm sure, I know where Damien Hardwick was at in that 2017 season where they backed him in. I'm not sure how confident they would have been where he was at and whether he's going to go on with it, but he has a successful year. So there's no doubt Michael Voss is coaching for his football career next year, but he may have a wonderful
Are you surprised
season.
to hear that they've reached out to others?
Not really, no. No, I'm not surprised. Obviously, Carlton will have their version and they've got to back their man, but no, it doesn't surprise me at all that you would, while you're doing your due diligence, reach out to others.
So, Damo, there were two coaches, when we went to here last week, there were two coaches under pressure, one being Voss and the other one being Simon Goodwin. The latter not under pressure anymore, removed as senior coach, and they are now hunting his replacement.
Yeah, and they set out on a very clear path. After the event, it must be said, Sam, that we gleaned to pursue an experienced, proven coach, and even in the space of a week, two of those leading candidates in Adam Simpson and John Longmire have withdrawn publicly via their media outlets from this race.
I don't want to coach next year. No, I think I'll give it a spell. So just thinking through it over the weekend, I know Horse has done the same thing. It just doesn't feel like it's the right time to be available because they haven't called me. And sometimes you wait for these things because you might think, oh, I'm not interested, but then you get the phone call and you go, oh, hang on, now I'm wanted. And then you sort of go, you pivot in a different way. But I've had a good think about it and just not in the right headspace with it. And the passion to go through all the process, because once you get approached, it's turbo and you need to really be prepared. And I'm not really prepared and not in the right headspace.
So that's one premiership coach in Adam Simpson. This is the other one, the premiership coach candidate option, John Longmire, who in the News Limited publications over the weekend made comments along those lines that he's ruling himself out. And basically, it's just too soon for him, having coached the Swans to a fourth grand final loss only last year, to attempt to return to the ranks. Now, this subcommittee that they're about to announce publicly, the Melbourne Footy Club, to pursue candidates, Nathan Buckley is the favoured outcome candidate at this stage. They will open it up a whole lot wider than that. But I believe, though, they will still seek to get those responses from Adam Simpson and John Longmire themselves. And while they are well aware that those statements have been made through the public and the media arms of these two gentlemen, that they will just make sure they hear it from themselves before they go into that next stage.
That's fascinating, Jimmy. As someone that's been part of this, I mean, to hear that these guys have publicly ruled themselves out, but no, we still owe it to the club to go and ask the question.
Yeah, you still want to find out how genuine they are and serious about it, because the last thing coaches want to do, and they've got big egos, and that's what makes them really good coaches. They don't want to put themselves out there and think, hang on, am I just part of a process and you've already got your man anyway? So they'd want to know from Melbourne Football Club, is this a legitimate process where all of us start at the start line and we're all going to get there through 1, 2, 3, whatever interviews? I
think rightly or wrongly, they feel as though with premierships on their CVs that their next job will be one that is just given to them without the need to go through a process.
And that's probably right, isn't it?
I think it's an understandable viewpoint from those perspectives. You've got the Nathan Buckley element too, who is a person of significant interest for Brendan Gale at the Tasmanian Football Club, but it is not going to be an issue in this particular Melbourne Football Club search because there is no Tasmanian licence. Brendan Gale, while he has made feeling type of conversations to a lot of people, including Nathan Buckley, he doesn't have any form of a contract to offer. And right now, there is nothing feasible that he can offer anyone, Nathan Buckley included, in terms of the vacancy or the potential vacancy in that Tasmanian job.
Nathan Buckley addressed his future on SEN this morning.
I've been out of coaching for a little bit longer, so I know exactly where they're at. And I'm still working out whether I'm there or whether I'm in. So I'm well and truly on the fence. There's not one outcome for the Melbourne Football Club that's going to be positive for them. There's a raft of really good options, and there'll be a raft of really good eventualities. And I'm prosecuting whether I'm one of them for them.
What's in Nathan's favour is he's hungry and you could see what he wants, so whether the other guys are playing coy or whether it's just too soon for them. John Longmire, what was it, 14 years, and Adam Simpson 11, so they've just been out of it for 12 months, but Nathan seems reinvigorated. But do you think he'll be the coach, and where do you think, it's often a relationship thing, who's the driving force behind Nathan Buckley being the new next coach of Melbourne?
The second part of your question is a really good one. Yeah. I'd be surprised now, Damo, if he's not coaching Melbourne round 1 next year. I don't know where you sit on this, but I do get a bit frustrated when clubs feel the need to go through these processes and get a subcommittee in it. Because in the end, Jimmy, they're there to do a job. Yeah. Their job, one of the elements of that job is to sack coaches and to pick coaches. That's why the board's there. That's why the administration's there.
But another element of boards is good governance. And so that is part of good governance, putting people through a process. And you might have your favourite at the start or the person you think is best fitted or best equipped to coach Melbourne Football Club. But part of a board, and any board, is to display good governance. And that is putting people through the process. You might discover something new about them, which can actually help, put good people around them. You might find some flaws in what they do in coaching, which, hang on, we might be exposed in that area. So, look, I understand where you're coming from. Their coaching records of the two other gentlemen speak for themselves. That's essentially their interview process.
Yep.
but you still need to have those formal conversations because that's what you need to do.
As we talk tonight, there is an intent for a subcommittee to be formed and announced publicly. Both Brad Green and Stephen Smith, I believe, will be on it. Alan Richardson, the football operations boss, will also be a member of it. I expect them to actually introduce a Jason Dunstall type of person as well, someone who's done the role previously at another football club. And now, I'm not saying Dunstall specifically, but that type of person from another club with genuine clout. And then I'd imagine be another board member and even another outside consultant in the I suppose, the workplace field of expertise.
So it's not a boat race then. Like I sit back here and say, if I'm a prospective coach and I want a position, I've got to be really careful that I'm not just being one of those guys that's lined up. I know there's been people that were disappointed when James Hird got the job at some stage, and I think Mark Williams went for it, and there was a few disappointment there, and there's been other situations that you're not just going to be going up at the end of the day. It's Nathan Buckley's job.
But it feels like that anyway, doesn't it?
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. So if every day we say, no, Adam Simpson's out, John Longmire's out, and then we'll get the next best young assistant say, I'm not going for it.
There is an intent to have it done by grand final week. Now, we've heard those timeframes before. It can sometimes be pushed back. But that's the intent. It was last week. It is the intent today.
But even if...
Which is not a long runway.
But before then, because we're talking about the day after grand final, basically the trade period starts.
Yeah, it needs to be done before.
We're talking about Petrarca again. We're talking about Oliver again. We're talking about everything they went through 12 months earlier. You talked about Alan Richardson to be potentially on the subcommittee. He had his say over the weekend as to whether the list needs a rebuild. And then after that, you'll hear from Max Gawn in the aftermath of the decision to remove Simon Goodwin.
Are you expecting a process for the next coach?
Oh, most definitely. I'm really open-minded. I'm looking forward to the process, and as a committee, we'll be wanting to find the coach that we think can get us back contending as quickly as possible, irrespective of whether they've been in the chair before or whether they haven't. I know the narrative has been around the fact that it's time to rebuild. No, I don't believe in that. I think our senior players have still got some really strong footy left in them.
It's funny how quickly you turn in football. Goodwin sacked. I'm like, geez, my life is over. Like, what's happened here? Like, I'm down at the dumps Tuesday morning, and then we train Tuesday after, then we train again Wednesday, and I come here today, and I'm like, I can't wait for Western Bulldogs. I can't wait to what we do in the trade period. I'm really excited about what coach we get in. It's funny how quickly you move on.
Well, speaking of the trade and free agency period, a lot of questions have been on Melbourne senior players over 30s. They went double down. We heard the Brad Green speech at Best and Fairest last year, and if Nathan Buckley is to be the man that takes over the Demons, gentlemen, he's not afraid to change players change out players who have been there for quite some time and
mean a lot to the club.
Yeah, and been part of the fabric, if you want to put it that way. And so that's his history there at Collingwood when he first came in, and obviously that leads to greater discussion around, Oliver, Petrarca, May, whoever else is over 30 years of age.
A lot of decisions to be made.
Yeah. And I wonder who the first coach will be to overrule sports science and get control back, because a lot was made about Nick Dacos at Collingwood starting on the bench and the poor start they got. Well, the start of the third quarter, Melbourne were on, and they had a great second quarter, and they started Pickett on the bench for 4 minutes 54 in the third quarter. They lose by 6 points in that time that Pickett's off the ground. The Doggies score 2 goals in the blink of an eye with no Pickett in the midfield or in the forward line. So again, I think more coaches have to be willing to play their best players on the ground for longer and in forward or defensive.
It's a great point that you raised. Yeah. The Western Bulldogs on that day dodged a bullet. Yeah. Their coach, Luke Beveridge, was interesting post-game.
We've had some monumental wins over the course of my time with the club, and this is one of the best. It really is. I'm really content, even though many might think, well, your ladder position, you should beat them. Well, it's not. I don't see it that way. I see Melbourne as a team that's ultra competitive. Really grateful for everyone's contributions, and we fight on.
Has he slightly overcooked that? I mean, monumental is a big word to use for someone who's twice won a preliminary final and once won a grand final. I know it keeps them alive.
You're not criticising Bevo again.
It's a big word to use.
Complimenting his group after a win.
It's a big word to use against a team that has won a very short amount of, or few amount of matches this year, Sam.
Feels like you're being harsh.
No, it's a big word to use. Hey, the Jamar Ugle-Hagan situation again has had a chapter added to it when Brendan Lade, an assistant coach at the Bulldogs, went behind the scenes as to where he's at lately.
Yeah, he still rocks up. He's had a few things going on with his family the last week or so, so we haven't seen him as much the last couple of weeks. But prior to that, though, he was at every session and really putting his name up to play in the VFL and hopefully get back to some good footy before the year's ended. But at the moment, he's probably put himself back a couple of more weeks, and the way the VFL's playing at the moment, he might be lucky to get a game.
They're second on the ladder, the VFL side, and haven't seen him as much the last couple of weeks, but before that he'd been okay. That's not the first time we've heard that since Jamar. So Jamar...
This has been a repeating theme.
Yeah, he needed to come back when he first come back and not miss a beat. And he would be playing now if he didn't miss a beat, but it's...
In senior footy or with the VFL?
Oh, well, at least VFL and with a slim chance. I never thought he'd play AFL because they've got too much there. They don't upset what they've got in that forward line. But I would use the word trust. Right across the board at that club, there is no trust. And if you don't have trust, you have nothing.
With him, or are you saying across the board?
With him.
Right.
With him. There's no trust. And when you don't show up and you miss a session, miss one, well, then you start to go, OK, I'm not sure about this bloke. You miss a second, the trust is gone. It's a long way back. And that's unfortunately why I personally can't see him ever playing another game of AFL footy.
With anyone?
With anyone, yeah.
That's a big statement to make at his age.
That's my belief. That's how big the trust word is for me. To even just let him through your doors, firstly, and then getting a game's another story.
So you wouldn't take a different environment, maybe in a different state, you wouldn't take the risk?
But to me, it's not about what's wrong with the dog's environment. Like, it's on him.
But maybe some players, I'm not trying to force this argument, but maybe some players need a change of environment. I mean, there have been circumstances before. Jesse Hogan's a great example.
I understand. He needs to change. He needs to change. Forget about the environment.